What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about embracing your unique faith journey, and that's coming up
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Perfectly Blended podcast. This podcast is for blended families, for couples that want to strengthen their marriage and want a brighter future. Perfectly Blended exists to break the stigma of divorce, drop the shame and guilt holding you back, and equip marriages to thrive instead of just survive. We believe all that is possible in this life is based on the power of Jesus Christ and His ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. Oh, hi, welcome to today's show. Today, we're going to be talking about embracing your unique faith journey. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, my beautiful, beautiful co-host, Miss Kristy. How are you, babe?
I'm okay.
I'm okay. Sounds like my son every time he comes home from something. How was it? It was okay. Is it okay good or okay bad? So are you okay good or are you okay bad?
I'm just okay today.
You're just okay. What are you looking for?
Because I want to move a little bit.
She's trying to readjust her chair. So today we want to talk about embracing your unique faith journey. Everybody's got a different journey when it goes and comes with faith, right? We all have a different journey that we've taken. Some of us have been raised in generations of Christians. Others of us have just come to know who Jesus is recently in our lives. And so I think it's really important that we talk about it and discuss a little bit about that. So nothing before we dive in?
No, but we do need to talk about how one of the reasons we want to talk about this is because with blended families, you guys have to understand that embracing your unique faith journey up until the point that you guys got together also makes a huge impact on your marriage.
It does. It's important that we talk about taking your faith family and future to the next level. Faith is such a underlining foundation of everything, right? So if we don't have our faith straight, then our marriage never will be straight. We'll always have struggles. If we don't have our faith straight, our own personal growth will never be straight. We'll always have struggles. So it's really important that we talk about that. So today we're going to talk about that. So point number one. Point number one is empathy. Empathy.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm listening to a book right now called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and it's an amazing book, and it's about leadership. But the portion that I listened to today talked about empathy and the power of empathy, and she gave detailed responses about what the difference is between empathy and sympathy. And the way she described it as, you know, someone is digging down into a deep, dark hole, and you peer over the edge and they say, "Hey, help, it's dark and it's scary down here." And we crawl down into the hole with them and knowing our own personal way out, not taking on, having a good set of healthy boundaries and not taking on their problems as our problems, but being able to empathize with the feeling. So she made it a really good point. Like, when I know a lot of people say, I can't empathize with that person because I've never been through what they're going through. But what are they feeling through this? Are they feeling trauma? Are they feeling discouragement? Are they feeling regret? You have experienced that feeling before. Mm-hmm. So empathy is being able to empathize with someone about the feeling that they're experiencing and sitting there with it. Where sympathy would be looking over the hole and saying, "Yeah, dude, that really sucks. Sorry that you're in this situation," and then walking on your way. But she did describe a lot with relating to people in the empathy, but also not taking on their problems as your problems, which can be traumatizing to you.
It can. And we think about, how do we apply that to like our journey of faith, right? So how do we apply this empathy? Well, we've all started somewhere in our journey of faith. Even if you're a generational Christian, right? Even if you've always just known faith, you still have your own journey of faith. And how are you being empathetic to other people? Maybe, I was actually at the church today and I was doing some video recording, and we kind of got into a side conversation I did with one of the pastors that were there. And we were talking about, how sometimes we sit and we listen to the pastor speak. And even one of the youth pastors was telling me today, he's like, even when I hear John, our lead pastor, speak sometimes, I'm like, oh, I've heard this 100 times. And then he'll say something. And he's like, wait a minute, I don't remember that. And then he wants to go back to the Bible and he wants to re-look through it. How are we taking that inquisitive nature of not thinking that we've been there, done that, know all about it, and then going back to when we didn't used to know about it? Are we staying empathetic with other people's journey of faith? And that allows us an opportunity really to connect with people in a real special way, just like Kristy's saying. Now we may not be able to say that we've been exactly where they've been necessarily, but can we empathize with the way that they're feeling about something, or, be relatable in that way along our journey of faith?
Yeah, and I think it's very important for us to do that in blended families too, because, as your stepchildren get older and they become more adults, as the step parent, you need to be able to empathize with them better, on a more level of that you would like a friend or a colleague or something like that than the bio parent, So a lot of times as step parents, we have to try a little bit harder than a bio parent when it comes to our stepkids with relating to them or empathizing with them. It's easier for us with our bio kids. That's just a natural part of being part of a blended family.
No, I completely agree. I know
with their faith journey, like with the stepkids' faith journey.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when we sit in church, right? And sometimes we come into church and we're like, this is our spot. This is where we sit. We always sit here every week. We've been doing this for a decade for us. And sometimes you just get there and you're like, oh, I've heard this message before, or, I wish that the pastor would talk, more deep about whatever it is, because we've already skipped stones, already talked surface level about these things. But is that really what's helpful for other people? Are we being empathetic to the full journey of faith of everybody around us? Maybe there's other people that are new to the church that haven't even heard anything about what's being spoke about. Are we being empathetic to that? Are we being disconnected from those things? I think it's easy to apply that same concept in blended families and stepchildren. And I think it's easy for us to apply that to our marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Where you have a did not.
Right.
And we have to become more empathetic, and we have to think to ourselves, we have a weird expectation on other people too.
Yeah, we do.
We get a case of the shoulds. You should be further along. You should know better. You should. And I think we lose our empathy when we play that game, when we start to do that.
Well, I do. And I think that we lose focus on what Jesus's message is. Jesus never was looking at the disciples saying, I'm giving up on you 12. I'm going to find a new 12. Because by now, you guys should, even me reading the stories, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, how many times has he told you he's getting crucified on the cross and he's going to rise 3 days later? He's not here to save Israel, save the world, type of thing. But that's not what Jesus did. He knew Judas was going to betray him. He still allowed him to be a disciple, to sit at the table, to do all of those things. And so when we get around and we've been Christians even for years and years and years, we can do that for ourselves by putting masks on. We want people to think that we're farther along than what we really are, which that then in turn allows us to judge others more. And I like to say, like, if you're judging someone, like if something that they're doing, you find yourself judging that person, I know I do it for myself, that usually is an insecurity or something that you have to work on in yourself. So God convicts us at different times throughout our journey. You don't know what that other person had dealt with or is dealing with. And maybe they have been a Christian for 50 years and just now God is convicting them about their language. So okay, good. That's not your concern. That's parables in the Bible too. Like, what is it to you, what I do, with about the parable about the coins, right? When they're like, well, that's not fair. Yeah, that's not fair. I started at the beginning of the day and you paid me the same amount that you brought in this person at the end of the day. What is it to you what I choose to pay people? I promised you I would pay you this, and this is what I'm paying you. It's no different. God, I used to think that when I was younger. I used to think, I used to be sitting in pews and I used to see, I'll never forget, like at my grandma's church, this guy was like 80 years old, it seemed like. And he became part of the church and he got saved and he was like a biker. And I actually sat there and was like, it must be nice that you could live your life however you want for your entire life. And now right at the end of your life, you get saved and you get to go to heaven and you get to experience everything that everybody else gets to experience. But that's not the way that it is. Like, we should be grateful that we came to Jesus first and foremost because of the joy and the peace and the understanding and the blessings that we get in our life and the wisdom, all of that from him. And we don't have all that regret we're living with. I mean, just since Josh and I have been together and we got saved, really became Christ followers,
Mm-hmm.
did we still have regret from when our kids were younger.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to stay in Oh, there it is.
Boom, we're back. It was like we went to a commercial break. That's what that was.
All of a sudden, bing!
All right, so number 2, right? So if we got interrupted and we are back, though, right? So number 2, all about building bridges, all about building bridges.
So that's what our goal should be. Our goal should be to empathize with others, whether they're saved or not saved. If they're Christian for 50 years and we think they're crotchety old heifers, we need to empathize with them that we don't know what they've been through in their life, and they maybe have raised to be a legalistic Christian. So let's try to empathize with them and offer them love. And then to the unsaved people as well that are living their lives and maybe they're not going to understand like the overwhelming love and peace and joy of God until they accept that into themselves. We empathize with them, which helps us become a stronger Christian. And then we help build that bridge, with them. Like, how can we come together to lead other people to Christ, get this unsaved person led to Christ? How can we then, I think it inspires us too. Like in recovery, Josh and I talk a lot about, if you're far along in your journey, you reach out and you help the person ahead of you, but then you also should have someone, behind you. And then you should also have someone ahead of you encouraging you to keep going as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way that it should be in the Christian walk. Like there should be people that are well ahead of us, that are empathizing with us and helping build a bridge to help us understand where they are. So then we can turn around and empathize with the people that are in the newer walk with God and empathize with them.
Yeah, and we've talked about our very first episode ever was about building the bridge, right? The Christian bridge, and about
bridging the Christian gap.
Yeah, and understanding the power, though, and understanding what that bridge really truly means. I tell guys a lot of times when I meet with them, and I know Kristy and I have talked about this, about, we live on the bridge, and living on the bridge is just embracing that's okay. It's all right that we're there. I'm not a generational Christian. I didn't grow up in that, right? We went out and lived our lives in a horrible way. We're both recovering alcoholics. We've had a lot of things that we've done in our lives that we're not proud of, so we're on the left end side of the spectrum. And then all the way on the right side of the spectrum is the generational Christians, right? People, and feel like we're more in the middle, right? We're trying to get farther to the right, but we're not there. And we will probably never be there, right? We're not. Hopefully our kids will be there and their kids will be there and so on and so forth. And we're trying to do that. But to understand that it's our job, right? We all have a job here on earth when it comes to growing God's kingdom is respect where you are. Respect the bridge that you have and you've been given. Turn around and look like Kristy's saying. What about the people that don't know who Jesus is? There's nobody better that can connect with those people than us. Right? If you've been there and God has given you an opportunity and you've embraced that and you're moving along the bridge, more towards the Christian life, you can connect with people that don't know who God is better than anybody can. And we have to learn that bridging that gap is our job. That is our job to do that. That's what God has saved us for. He didn't save Josh just for Josh, right? He's doing these things to work through us and through everybody. And so we have to learn how to continuously build these bridges and work on this bridge, connecting the two together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times with this in blended families, we can be internally focused because we have so much going on in our own blended family. And part of the reason why Josh and I started this podcast and part of bridging the Christian gap was to reach blended families in the Christian community. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important as a married couple too, to not disregard these points of how you can reach out to other blended families in your Christian community or in your church to be able to empathize, or blended families that know that they need help of some sort, and God is the ultimate answer to that. How you can empathize with them with what they're dealing with, what they're going through. Like we've never had to deal with a blended couple we've never had to deal with our kids being out of state with another parent, yes. Right? But we coach couples that deal with that, and we still can empathize with, having to share the children, having to share the time and a high conflict text and all of those things, and then help bridge the gap as a couple with other couples of hope and encouragement and how to keep God in the center and all of that stuff. So this is really good things, but don't forget to be, as a couple, doing this for other couples as well, because especially blended families in the Christian community, they need that. We need that encouragement and that empathetic ear and someone showing us how to bridge the gap, maybe with the marriage and the church that they're currently a part of or something like that. There's so many ways that this could be utilized.
No, for sure.
I could talk like all over different topics.
Yeah. And thank you. What was the name of the episode? Bridge the Christian Gap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did actually 2 of those, I think. We've done 2 of them over the last few years. And it's funny. So a friend of ours shared with Kristy because she's in a master's program right now for going into therapy to help children. And she texted Kristy the other day and says, hey, I just want you to know, I was just in a class and they were talking about how underserved blended families are in the Christian community. And she's like, I just want to thank you and Josh so much, for the work that you guys are really putting in and pushing on this. And it's so important that we don't always see the gaps, right? We don't always see the gaps, but if we are been in the gap or we're part of that gap, that's why it's important for us to be part of that bridge, right?
Yeah.
To step up and be a voice for those that many people, it's not that they even do that intentionally. People sometimes just don't know it and they don't see it.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have to step up and we have to be willing to bridge that gap. And in doing that, that helps further our own spiritual journey.
It does.
Right? It helps grow us. God grows us through that journey because it puts us in positions to be uncomfortable.
Well, and the more we help and the more that we're serving, I mean, it's basically serving. Bridging the gap is serving. So it's like that opens up our heart for the Holy Spirit to move more in us too, and to get deeper roots in God and all of those things.
Amen, sister. All right, and the last point.
It worked.
Embrace your journey.
I thought you were going to say embrace the suck.
No.
That's still a good phrase.
It is good.
Yeah.
That's not this point.
No, I know.
Embrace your journey.
So this is twofold to me. So you need to embrace your own spiritual journey and what God is convicting you on and what God's growing you out of and all of that stuff in order to be able to help others empathize with someone, bridge the gap with someone, and then help them embrace their own journey. And then also, though, you have to embrace your own journey before you can work with your spouse on embracing their journey and doing that together, because you will have an individual journey that God is bringing you along. But if you're married, God also, that's a united journey that you're supposed to be on together too. So, and that's a fine balance that you both need to do in prayer and petition and all that stuff.
And I think it's real easy to get into the would, shoulds, coulds, like all these things of your journey, right? We become journey jealous, right, of other people.
I like that.
And it's true, right? Even with our spouses, we can be that way. And it's real easy sometimes for our spouses to be upset with us because we're not coming along the same speed as them, And so we have to really sit back and say, you know what, God, this is the journey you have me on. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to keep pushing forward, and it's all about putting in the effort and working hard at your own spiritual journey, figuring out the ways that work best for you. So, and we've talked about it 1,000 times on here, and it's something that works for me. I'm not a big reader, right? I know how to read. I just don't like to read. And a lot of it is because I don't like to sit down long enough to read. But I've learned over the years that listening to books or listening to podcasts is something that works for me. So I utilize that like crazy, right? And so it's like we have to understand that we have to embrace our own journey, but don't give up on the journey. Embrace it. Try and solve the problems around it. I'm not going to have the same journey as Kristy. I'm not. But it doesn't mean my journey is any less spiritual or strong than what hers is. It's funny. So at times we'll talk about like things we're doing well right now in our spiritual journey and things we suck at right now on our spiritual journey, and we kind of go in ebbs and flows with some of this stuff, but the goal is you don't quit. You don't stop. You just keep pushing and keep working towards embracing the journey that God has offered you and stop looking at other people's journeys. Pay attention to what God has at hand for you and keep pushing.
Journey jealousy. I like that.
Journey jealousy.
I agree, though. You have to, I think, but that's talked about a lot in the Bible and it's talked a lot about in sermons, and it's the comparison. So it's comparing yourself and your walk to other people's faith walk. And it is a journey jealousy. I really like that. That's quick-witted and easy to remember. But that's also a tactic that Satan will use to get you not to focus on what God wants you to be focusing on. It'll slow you down on your journey when you're too busy looking at someone else's path. You're usually stopped on your own path to look at someone else, admire, be jealous, whatever you want to use for that. And then you're stopped. You're not moving forward anymore because and then it could be anger, bitterness,
Overwhelm.
that gets in your heart. And the imposter syndrome,
Yep.
oh, I could never do what they could do because who am I? Like, of course they get it, but I don't get it. So it's really, really important to stay connected with, if God puts something on your heart to do it, you have to stay true to that and just stay faithful and continue on your journey. And even if other people, then it could be twofold. It could be other people are voicing to you that they're jealous of you. So sometimes we'll want to dim our own light to not make other people uncomfortable. And that's not what we're supposed to do. Like, we're supposed to shine bright, have a good heart, not be prideful about it, but continue on. And if someone else, that's make them uncomfortable, that's between them and God. That's not between you and them. So your role is to be obedient.
So you ask yourself, are you embracing your journey of faith, right? Are you doing the things that God's calling you to do? As a way of review, number one is...
Because we got interrupted.
Empathy. Yeah, so I don't know if it'll continue and bridge the gap.
I hope so.
Right. So number one is power of empathy, right? We have to make sure that we're utilizing empathy in our own journey, right? At both ends, depending on where we're at in our journey. Because we're never all the way at the other end. Right?
It's like bookends.
That's right. That's right. And number two is make sure that we're building bridges. We're constantly building bridges. Maybe where we came from to where we're trying to go. We should have a bridge on each side of that, understand our position on the bridge. And then number three is embrace your unique spiritual journey and, embrace the actual journey that you have.
Yeah.
And don't get journey jealousy.
I love that.
And look at other people's journey. God has you on a specific path. Embrace that and keep pushing.
Because you could get journey jealousy with your spouse.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said that earlier. And it's true.
I've missed
No, that's fine. It's true, though. It's like there's a lot of things that you do really well. I was actually just talking about it today at church. It's some things that you do very, very well that, like, I could do it as well. I'm just...
Oh, I thought you were like, I could do it better. I'm like,
no, no, I don't believe that. I know better than that, actually. But it's something that is important to you to do these specific things, and you're very good at them. And so it's real easy for me to focus on your journey and the way that you do it. And then instead of looking at like, okay, these are things I need to focus on.
Yeah.
So it's real easy for jealousy to be, and we're very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
We're very competitive. And so I have to be very careful that, because the enemy wants to take me off of my journey to see the things that you do.
Yeah, I'll give a silly example for me, myself personally, when it comes to being a wife. So Josh and I, this is silly, but it's still an example.
I'll tell you if it's silly.
It is silly, but Josh and I, a lot of friends that we have, couples, we go over to their house. A lot of them, you walk into their house, the females in that relationship, the wife in that relationship has the house decorated like it's Joanna Gaines and it's directly out of a magazine. Or they're out gardening and they're planting flowers and all of those things, right? And I really start to question my womanness, in that instance a lot when we're going over someone else's house. And I'd be like, man, I should just decorate more. Man, I should want to garden more. I should want to do all of these things, right? And just in the last, I would say probably the beginning of this year, so probably in the last few months, I've gotten more and more confident in myself in that area where I don't care about that stuff. I would pay somebody to come. I like the way the house looks. I mean, I would pay somebody to come in and make my house look that way and like a decorator or something. But I need to embrace how God made me. And God made me to not care about having flowers around my house, not spend time in my yard, not spend time decorating my house, not making it look pretty. Like, I don't care about those things enough. I get jealous of the way that other things look. So it's very important for me to compliment them and tell them they do such a good job. And that's maybe a special gift that God gave them and I to be able to see and what to order and put it all together and have it all match and look amazing. But that's not something that's me. And that could take my focus off of what type of wife I'm supposed to be being for my husband. I'm focused more on what these other wives are doing for their homes and their kids or their husbands and the way they're doing all of these things, when really that's just going to take my focus on, like, Josh married me. I'm hoping he knew for the most part everything that he was getting. I mean, we knew each other back in the day, but I'm not a decorator. I'm not a gardener. I'm not those things, and I would rather be doing, I don't know, I'd rather be managing.
Kristy is a corporate executive woman. She is a high achieving business world woman. That's what she is. Most of the homes that we go to, the women aren't those things, right? They are able to spend a lot more time at home and focus on these types of things. And whether Kristy would focus on those things or not doesn't matter, because first off, I'm not a decorator, so our house is not female decorated, right? And I'm the one that's home more often. So, and I don't care, right? I want to encourage my wife. My wife consumes leadership material, spiritual growth material, individual personal growth material. Like, she cares about those things, being a good leader at work and taking care of her herd and doing these things, where a lot of these other ladies, they don't have that type of stuff under their care, right? So she spends a lot of time in other areas that God has given her in charge of, and she does an amazing job of it. I mean, if she wants to take all that energy and pour it into a garden and pour it into decorating walls and stuff, I don't think God would bless it the same. I just don't. I don't think that's your gifts in life, and I don't think that's never what you were designed or intended to be. Because,
right.
And that sometimes it's hard, like you're saying, we get to look at other people and we think, why can't I be like them?
Right.
Well, because we're never designed to be like them. We're designed to be like other people. We have our own unique faith journey,
And it is like, that's a gift right now that those women, like, God wants you to be a good caretaker for what he put in your care at that time. And sometimes the season changes. So if you're a mom of small children at that time, I know women, I have kids of my own. I know that you can get really lost up and feeling like you're invisible because you've poured so much of your identity and yourself into raising your little kids and all of these things. But then as the seasons change, but that's what God called you to do in that moment. Like, you were called to have the little babies during that time and to have the little toddlers and to be there for them and to take good care of them. And then as the seasons change, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that is what God has put into your care at this time, is to care for the house, make it look pretty, make it look nice, all of those things. So I think that when we start getting jealous, like if another woman looked at me, let's say that their house is amazing and everything else, if we communicated about these things, that woman might be like, I look at you and I'm jealous of everything that you're doing. And then we can sit down with one another and be like, why would you be jealous? Like, your house is amazing. Your kids are amazing. You do such a good job homeschooling, all of these things. And then they're like, why would you be jealous of me? And so then that's when we get empathy. That's when we're bridging the gap. That's when we're doing all of these things, is when we're communicating with each other,
being real
and being vulnerable, about it. In the book that I'm reading, she calls it rumbling with vulnerability. So let's be willing to rumble with one another with vulnerability. So
yeah, healthy conflict resolution is really what it comes down to.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Being real, though, being open and honest.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us, right? It's hard for us when we're doing in our unique journey of faith, right?
Yeah.
It's all about, people that we see that are at a certain level in their journey, and it's like, I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Recovery is the same way.
Yeah, and you don't know what it took to get there, though, and you don't know what you think that you know, even. Sometimes people aren't where you think they are.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important that we focus on what God has given us at hand, and we focus on our own spiritual gifts and our own spiritual talents and lean into that journey of faith.
And if you're married, you and your spouse need to be each other's biggest cheerleaders. About that
biggest support group.
Support group. That's
not picking on each other, not saying, why aren't you doing more of this? Why aren't you doing more of that? No, that is not how we encourage each other to do things. But of course, there's always things that you want each other to do more of or be better at within the relationship, but it comes with prayer and encouragement. It never comes with, criticism. Thank you. Yeah. With lots of criticism, right? Because criticism comes from, I think, a level of frustration, and frustration has nothing to do with you, has everything to do with me.
Or judgment.
And judgment has nothing to do with you, really has everything to do with me. Insecurity has everything to do with me, not with you. And we have to understand that when we talk about embracing our own unique journey, that is not our spouse's journey.
Right.
Yeah. And that's hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. So, all right. Anything else?
No, I'm amazing.
She's amazing. She said it. Mark it down. All right. Want to thank you so much for being here. 7 p.m. every Tuesday live will be here. If you haven't yet, you can join our Facebook group. I'll make sure to leave a link below. And you can join. It's a private group, right? We go live in that every 2 weeks at 6 p.m. So Eastern, if you're interested in being part of that.
So it's next week.
It's next week.
And Josh and I, we haven't talked about it in the last couple podcasts. Oh, if you missed last week we had an amazing interview with people on there.
Last episode was good.
Yeah. But Josh and I wrote a couples journal.
Yeah.
And Finding Joy in Second Chances. It's on Amazon. So go on Amazon, check it out. It has a unique twist to it, to where you leave it out in a common area and you and your spouse basically write little grateful notes to each other.
Yeah.
So, and it's
prompts, so you don't even have to make the stuff up. I mean, it prompts you on what to write, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
So if you haven't checked it out, you need to.
Check it out, Amazon.
You missing out.
That's right.
You're missing out if you didn't check it out.
You're missing out because you didn't check it out. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
Bye.